No. Ooh. Mm. Hey, what's going on? I know. I still have not gotten it down. I still panic when I I don't know. I don't know why it's such a problem for me. How's your weekend? I don't know why it makes a difference, but super distracted. Not that far, really. I am unable, like literally unable, to learn how to fish. I still, like, I've played multiple genres of games, and I've never, like, gotten as frustrated as I've gotten trying to fish properly. I even went ahead and bought the. Oh man, I'm totally gonna pass out. I have no idea where I am. Um, yeah, I was just mindlessly trying to, what's it called? Fish, to learn to fish. Oh, and then I bought that other rod that I put away because it didn't do anything. It was just picking up trash as well. Um, but with this one, I cannot. Really? Yeah, exactly. It's insane. See anything? No. I don't think there's any other Stardew player that would be as bad as I am at it. And it's like such a simple concept, right? Like the whole don't fish on the farm. What does that do? Yeah, so I got the training rod, and the training rod was just picking up trash, um, but I was still struggling. So it, was, it made me frustrated. I was like, well, if I'm going to struggle anyway, I might as well struggle and hopefully catch something. That was not the case. Oh, look at this. No, get me home. Oh, okay. Well then, maybe I should go pull it out and learn. That makes more sense. it just seemed more convenient to get it and then farm at home and then, you know, finish the day out, burn myself out. The mountain lake. Did I go to sleep? No, I did not go to sleep. Stop. No. 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 Oh, and I need one more brick. Like, it really wants me to check that thing over there. Oh. Oh, I met everybody, finally. I don't know where the shorts are. I can't kill the slimes. Because almost the sword, I threw away the sword. The mine, obviously. I think that's gonna be a long term thing. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I really don't know what this is. If I'm supposed to chop it off, is that like? Yeah, remember you were there. Like, I threw away the sword when it was given to me, instead of putting it in my box or something. Not by any means. Look at that. Am I supposed to? No, I'm sure I wasn't supposed to do that. Oh man. Oh cool. I need one more brick. So I'm gonna go to the mine today. Why am I tired already? Oh yeah. Like, I have all this stuff and I have no idea what to do with it. Like, that thing. Oh, that's a potato. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I need one more of these things. A bar to build that other thing. The default selection, like that one. Like swap these out, you mean? Oh. Oh. Because it could be a weapon as well, or what's up? I can't believe I'm already tired. I haven't done anything. It was that thing. I think I read through. Oh, okay. Oh, because you can't throw away your side. Let's see. That guy who's always in a bad mood for some reason. Look. So grumpy, dude. Just chill. Hey, stuff. Hey, more stuff. Oh my god. Oh. What else am I picking up here? I can't wait to understand what these things are. Hey, worms. I saw that too. Oh. Another book. Take it. I'm gonna make that is a pro tip. I'm gonna make that a point. Oh, come on. That is so lame. Ooh. mystery person. Oh, can I only carry 5? Is that what's going on? Wow. I skimmed through a couple videos and I did not see that. That's pretty cool. Cool tip, thank you. Oh, I can't even carry fish anyway. Ooh. So when you say weapons, do you mean there's more than just a sword? Was that a leak? Are there bows and arrows? Let me check out what this is. I've never been here. Okay, judgy. Animals! A big coop. You see, that's the thing. It didn't specify when it said a coop. So I just did a normal coop. Is that a thing over there? Is that an entrance to something? Is it? That looks super sus. Where am I? What? Where's my... Hey! Oh my gosh. How do I get to my house? Oh wait, that's not even a site. Maybe if I just knock these out. Okay. No. There. I wonder if that'll be considered a coop right there. It seems very coopy to me. Wait, what was that? What is that? Oh yeah. Let's see this thing. No. No. Oh yeah. Oh, it's 2:30. Can't even go to sleep. Jesus. Training ride. Gotta make it a fishing day. Coral. Coral. Ah, oh no. I can't. I wasn't listening. I couldn't hear it because I'm linked this other way. But I had a feeling that it was probably gonna be that just by where I was standing. No. Ah, come on. Garbage. Garbage. Okay. I don't even know how to play things today. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna need that for sure. What was that? Now I'm scared of like raging because you're just gonna clip it. Okay. Hey! Whoa! That was awesome. That almost felt unfair. Yay! Trash. That's so cool, right? All luck. I have no idea, and I will not be able to replicate that. Wait, what? I got 4 jades? Those are supposed to be... Is that super cool? Nice. I have no idea. Oh man, I'm just scared of throwing stuff away. Probably start getting home soon. Yay! Okay. It was beginner's luck. Literally beginner's luck. Look, you saw that one, right? You can't clip that, right? Okay, one more. Last one. Okay, treasure chest. I'm going home. That's a sign. Let's run! Do you have like a bike like Pokemon. That feels too high. I don't think I'm going home there. Oh yeah, that was right. Yeah, no, the other night, I wanted to watch a movie on the couch because I just hadn't gotten a chance to sit down and like not do something with my hands or think. But then I was like, hey, I forgot that I could undock the game and bring it over. And yeah, it chilled me out just doing, like I said, trying to fish. Until it didn't. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a lot of... Okay. Jaden fish. There it is. I've got energy again. Jade, fish, and coral. Oh yeah, backpack! Wait, do I do something to this? Do I do something to these? Are these ready or do I just water them? Oh, okay. What? Oh. I got wheat! I don't know what to do with it, but I hadn't had wheat before. Wheat and hay. Oh. You're the best. Oh, I could go for some blueberry pancakes for sure. What do I do with the hay? Do I sell it or do I like put it away? Is that good for... Oh, my puppy! I'm so sorry, dude. Oh. Well, it's probably hot outside anyway. Keep it. What? I'm just watering my chest. That's what we do when it's hot. No! This is incredibly weird. Why don't I get it? Okay. Oh, I didn't have my chest open. Okay. Okay. Let me go buy a backpack. Let me go get a snack now. What? Wait, trash counts? I'm not very gullible, but I trust you with this game. So I don't know if you're serious or not. Oh. Thank you. Oh yeah. Who do I buy a backpack from? Here. Sweet. Look at that. Thank you. That's such good advice. Such good advice. Yeah, that's gonna make a huge impact for on my days out. Oh yeah, the mine. I need that one last bar. I don't know where I am. She looks very suspicious. What are you doing out here in the middle of nowhere? No greeting, straight to questioning? Hey there. Should be. Oh, sorry, I had a family call. I know. Hey, did I... What is that? Why is it so shiny? Oh, but I don't have a pale ale. Oh, that'd be nice. That's a big, what's it called? Can I build my own spa at some point? Yes. Yes. Oh, cool. Well, I don't need them to bite faster. I just need to, like, you know, reel them in better. What do I do with these? Georgia. It doesn't help that I make the stupidest face every time, like, not only I'm about to make a mistake, but then it just kind of freezes while I make the mistake because I can't believe how dumb I am at pressing buttons. Well, I mean, to be fair, that one I had no idea what that was going to do. No, I should have known what that was going to do. Okay. This is the ugliest farm. Oh, my puppy needs water. Oh yeah, everything takes water, energy. Yeah, never again. I've learned. I'm 2 mistakes away from just getting a notepad and a pen. It'll look like I'm keeping a cheat code list, and it's just like, nope, how not to delete your stuff. What does that mean? Oh. Wait, like what? Oh, I missed like watering one of mine? Oh. I knew it. Is it that summer thing? Like the season change kind of thing? Or the water thing? Hey! Oh. Wow. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am my own worst enemy in this game, actually. The best thing I've done for myself was take that phone call. I always kind of want to give this dude something. He seems like a nice dude. You see? See? I may have shitty crops. I mean, that's to say that I have shitty crops. That's true. That's a low maintenance friend right there. Let's get this gold or copper or see, I hate that thing already. Get away from me. Yay! Well, I think it's not the lowest one that I've been. It's the lowest one recorded, and I don't even know what recorded it. Hey, what's up, Brad? Welcome to the self-sabotage room. Yeah, but I don't know how to go further. I've never seen this thing. Earth crystal, that's a new one. Where did it go? Oh. Let me check that out. Sorry. Oh, has that been? Go back out, and there should be an elevator. No. I know there's the elevator there. I just don't have a weapon to like do better down there. I don't know if that makes a... Let me see. Oh! I had completely forgotten that I had a second... what's it called? That second row of... for my items. Okay, so I need my pickaxe for this. Hey! That's exactly what I needed. Yeah, no, so it's my first time playing this game. Not today, right, but my first playthrough, I guess. And I was given a weapon. I was given a sword, and instead of putting it away, I accidentally trashed it. Unfortunately. Get away, get away, get away! Whoa! Where am I? What? I just went in a circle. Let me see. Oh. I mean, I hope not. I hope I'm able to get a sword at some point. But... Hey! I'm guessing those blue ones are harder than the green ones, right? Ah! No, 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 no! Ah, give me that! Dude, leave me alone! Ay, ay, ay. That was super aggressive, too. Go away. Wait, is that not common? Because I've been nothing but getting beat up by slimes. Oh, this is dangerous. Can I eat this? Is that edible? Nope. Fiber, I'm just gonna poop myself. What's this? Cherry bomb? What? That's pretty sweet. Oh. Okay. It was a gang of monsters. What am I doing? What happened to my fire? Can I not get it anymore? No. Oh no. I'm just gonna leave that there. I don't know if... No, I'm not gonna leave it there. Can I grab it? Oh, okay. I don't want to throw this down. And I don't know how to... Oh, come on, that's unreal. I'm just gonna press this button. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super tired and I can't eat anything and there's no stairs. Hey, or... Oh, that's what I needed. And I need to get away from... I need to get away from that guy. Ow! Look at me go. Look at me go. On lucky days. Nice. I will do that. Let's go home before I pass out. Oh, hey worms. What? There were worms there. I thought it was like a guarantee something. Can you hear the YouTube thing as well? Or is that just coming out in my headphones? Ooh, is there something hidden over here? That's cool. Oh, weird. What is this?
Through his mind, but somehow he tried in vain to connect them with who spoke them, and thus his thoughts gradually awakened into rational order, and he saw that he came out of a dream. So Sartan lent Poe some necessities and bid farewell to his friend. Sartan's accounts are generally accepted as true by Poe historians. John Sartan had no real motive to lie. He was a successful man with a full life and had no desire to profit from Poe's condition or impending death. Even in Sartan's accounts, he admits to occasional lapses in memory. This certainly lends to his credibility if we can put aside convoluted scenarios of reverse psychology. Sartan would go on to recount these events in 3 publications. The accounts have some differences between them, but Sartan's tale remains the only remotely reliable account of Poe's final months. Historians are uncertain how or why Poe ended up at Sartan's doorstep. Like most things in Poe's life, there are an endless array of theories and proposed timelines. But we can say for sure that when Poe left Sartan, he was in good spirits. These good spirits crumbled rather quickly, as they often did within Poe's lifetime. Poe did not get on a train to New York or Baltimore, as Sartan had anticipated. Instead, he remained in Philadelphia and began to dwell on death. Days after leaving Sartan, he wrote to his mother-in-law, "I have been so ill, have had the cholera, or spasms quite as bad, and can now hardly hold the pen. It is no use to reason with me. I must die." Here Poe proclaims to have cholera. This could be a clue to many things, including his upcoming death. But in recent years, scientific testing on Poe's body indicated 2 facts. He never truly had cholera, but he was treated for it. This treatment, rather than the disease, then, may provide us with information about his death. But for now, we should continue with the tale of his final days. See, we have only begun to unravel this whole mystery. So, putting aside his faulty cholera diagnosis, we can explore the idea that the hallucinations he described to Sartan were due to delirium tremens, a condition brought on by alcohol withdrawals. It's an easy assumption to make. Poe had lifelong struggles with alcohol. He also had the symptoms of confusion, agitation, and hallucinations caused by DT. But these could be the symptoms of many conditions, and we don't know if Poe displayed other hallmarks of DT, those like temperature elevation, tremors, increased heart rate, and heavy sweating. We also do not know if, during this period of his life, Poe was drinking enough to cause DT upon abstaining. Furthermore, these sorts of withdrawal symptoms usually begin 2 to 4 days after the final drink of alcohol. But Poe was put in prison for drunkenness, and it seems his hallucinations occurred immediately. In any case, Poe fell into despondence in Philadelphia. He was paranoid, depressed, and very recently hallucinating. Now, having left Sartan's, he was also homeless. Poe asked his friend George Lippard for a loan. Lippard himself was broke, but he was a great admirer of Poe's work, so Lippard wanted earnestly to help. Eventually, Lippard was able to find aid from a Reverend Burr. Lippard and Burr procured Poe a train ticket and accompanied him to the platform in Philadelphia. Lippard noted, "He held our hand for a long time and seemed loath to leave us. There was in his voice, look, and manner something of a presentiment that this strange and stormy life was near its close." Poe eventually found his way back to Richmond, Virginia. There, his state of mind immediately improved. He had plans to start a magazine, plans which were now beginning to materialize. He found a financial backer for the endeavor. Poe received a letter from his mother-in-law, which he said, quote, acted like magic for his mind. Further, the writer was accompanied in Richmond by his loving sister, who had a lifelong tendency to protect and dote over him. A family friend even described Poe's attitude as easy and graceful at this time. But Poe began to torpedo all of this in a characteristic move of self-sabotage. He had a lifelong hypersensitivity to alcohol and its effects. In Richmond, he began drinking once again. The man got drunk quickly and often took days to recover. After one particularly heavy bout of drinking, Poe's family believed him to be in grave mortal danger. Their doctor agreed. Although he recovered, the doctor told Poe that another such incident would certainly prove fatal. Swearing to temperance, Poe spent the remainder of the summer in Richmond, giving lectures and falling into a deep romance with a new partner. No one witnessed him drinking again while he was in Richmond, and according to one letter, this time was the happiest he had known for many years. Poe continued working on his magazine, which now called for him to travel to Baltimore. He told his lover he would return in under 2 weeks. Poe's closest friends described his mood as upbeat and elated in his final Richmond days. On September 25th, he left a party in Richmond with a final goodbye before his trip. His farewell was described in a letter. We were standing on the portico, and after going a few steps he paused, turned, and again lifted his hat in a last adieu. At that moment, a brilliant meteor appeared in the sky, directly over his head. Nobody knows what happened to Edgar Allan Poe between September 27th and October 3rd. There are no records of anyone conversing with him or even seeing him throughout his journey to Baltimore. Even after his death, no one stepped forward with claims of having seen him. Virtually all of Poe's life is subject to theory, conflicting accounts, and measured speculation. This week, however, his life becomes a black hole entirely. Certainly whatever transpired did so to devastating effects. On October 4th, a printer named Joseph Walker saw an odd construction on East Lombard Street in Baltimore. There were 2 barrels acting as supports for a long wooden plank. On top of the plank there lied the body of a near-lifeless Edgar Allan Poe. Although deep in a stupor, Poe was able to identify himself. Walker immediately sent a message to his friend, Dr. Joseph Evans Snodgrass. There is a gentleman, rather the worse for wear, at Ryan's 4th Ward polls, who goes under the name of Edgar A. Poe, and who appears in great distress, and he says he is acquainted with you, and I assure you he is in need of immediate assistance. Walker all but dragged Poe into a nearby tavern and sat him on an armchair. By the time Dr. Snodgrass arrived, a crowd had gathered to gawk at Poe. Here we can surrender the narrative to Snodgrass himself. When I entered the bar room of the house, I instantly recognized the face of one whom I had often seen and knew well, although it wore an aspect of vacant stupidity which made me shudder. He was so utterly stupefied with liquor that I thought it best not to seek recognition or conversation, especially as he was surrounded by a crowd of drinking men, actuated by idle curiosity rather than sympathy. For Walker and Snodgrass, this may have been a clear enough case. Poe had imbibed himself into stupor to the point of near death, but there was something odd about Poe's condition. Snodgrass noted that his hat was clearly not his. His attire was second-hand condition at best and did not fit Poe at all. His shirt was crumbled and soiled. Poe was not either wearing his vest or neckcloth, which would have been expected at the time. Snodgrass suspected he was wearing someone else's clothing, and he was right. Edgar Allan Poe was a well-kept, even well-dressed man in his time. These clothes did not belong to Poe. Snodgrass ordered a carriage to take Poe to the hospital, but Poe could not move his extremities. He was virtually paralyzed, and he could not speak any more than incoherent mumbling. Snodgrass and a small crowd managed to hoist Poe into the carriage, and Poe was admitted into a nearby hospital. The attending physician was Dr. John Morin, and the accounts we have of Poe's final days are Morin's. According to him, Poe was immediately undressed and examined. Alcohol poisoning seemed like the obvious culprit, but Morin's account distinctly says otherwise. There was no smell of liquor upon his person or breath. There was no delirium or tremor. His skin was pallid with slight nausea at the stomach and a strong disposition to sleep. His condition was more of a stupor. The next day, Poe remained in this stupor, barely cognizant, but perhaps tranquil. Allegedly, upon being informed that he was in good care and in the company of friends, Poe replied, "My best friend would be the man who would blow my brains out with a pistol." Nobody came to visit Poe while he was in the hospital.
Nobody wants to be your friend.
2 days after being admitted, Poe apparently underwent a swift change in temperament. Moran recorded seeing Poe, violent and delirious, resist the efforts of 2 nurses as they tried to keep him in bed. During these days, Poe's body was cold to the touch, but he carried a dangerously high fever. Poe carried on conversations with hallucinations on the wall and in his hospital room. Poe was admitted on Wednesday. On Saturday evening, it seemed he had reached the end of his road. Moran found Poe in his bed with a spastic, weak pulse. His pupils were rapidly dilating and contracting. Moran wrote that Poe's death was quickly incoming. One of Moran's colleagues, a senior doctor, examined Poe and agreed, saying, "He will die. He is dying now." That night, Poe screamed the name Reynolds repeatedly until 3 o'clock in the morning. He screamed this mysterious name so loudly and so many times that the action drove him to physical exertion. Poe fell again into a stupor as the sun rose. That Sunday morning, Edgar Allan Poe died in his hospital bed. From the moment Poe left Richmond, he donated to us a legacy of mysteries. The truth is that none of these have earnest answers, but if we examine each question in the context of its time, we do get closer to some impressions. One of the most persistent questions is Poe's clothing. Poe was known to be well kept, even well dressed, but when he was found in Baltimore, he wore dirty, used clothes that clearly did not fit him. They weren't his. So whose clothes was he wearing, and why? Poe arrived in Baltimore on the day of an election. The tavern he was found in front of was also being used as a polling station. At the time, political violence and thuggery was commonplace in Baltimore. In a practice known as cooping, gangs kidnapped travelers, forced them to consume alcohol or drugs, and then dragged them from polling station to vote repeatedly for a single candidate.
Wow.
Occasionally, if polling stations were close to one another, victims were forced to change clothes in between votes. Given this, it's pretty reasonable to say that Poe was cooped, but this theory is based entirely on a handful of coincidences. Furthermore, it was not the act of cooping that killed Poe. He showed no signs of physical trauma, no bruises, wounds, or broken bones. We could say that the political gangs forced him to drink himself to death, but Moran, for the imperfections of his accounts, did repeatedly note that Poe was not drunk when they found him. If Poe was cooped, the process must have exacerbated some pre-existing condition, and we will get to that shortly. Poe screamed the name Reynolds all throughout the night before he died. But who is Reynolds? On 2 occasions, Poe had written with admiration about the American explorer Jeremiah N. Reynolds. Poe also used Reynolds' speeches as a primary source when he wrote The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym. The explorer spent many years advocating for a trip to the South Pole. In one of his 2 Reynolds stories, Poe wrote, "It is evident we are hurrying onward to some exciting knowledge, some never to be imparted secret whose attainment is destruction. Perhaps this current leads to the South Pole itself." It is poetic to think that Poe spent his final hours making his circumstance into a metaphor. Like Reynolds longed to explore the unknown abyss of the South Pole, Poe was now headed towards his own unknown. For a long time, this was the accepted identity of Poe's Reynolds. Biographies published as recently as the 1970s assert as much. More recent works have shifted the focus to a Henry Reynolds, who was an election official in Baltimore at the time. This ties in nicely again with the cooping theory. But there is no evidence that Poe ever knew, met, or knew of Henry Reynolds. We could theorize that perhaps the two met during a hypothetical cooping, but at some point we are just piling theory on top of theory. We should also consider 2 other ideas. Poe was delirious when he allegedly was screaming this name. Perhaps it was just that, a meaningless delusion. Or maybe it never happened at all. Maybe he never screamed Reynolds. And this brings us to another set of mysteries within Poe's death. Poe's time in the hospital has been the subject of debate, tradition, and speculation. It is in most parts a mystery. For this time of Poe's life, these final days, we have only 2 accounts, that of Dr. Snodgrass and that of John Moran. Snodgrass was a hardline temperance advocate who believed alcohol was to blame for any number of societal issues. From the moment he found Poe, Snodgrass was determined to utilize the author's condition for the temperance movement. Furthermore, he recounted these days many times throughout his life, often with glaring inconsistencies, and always concluding that temperance was the way forward. Dr. Moran provides us with similar problems. After Poe's death, his career would shift from physician to lecturer, touring and speaking for substantial profit about Poe's final days. The pattern of these lectures, as he retold them, was heightened drama, likely embellishments, and again, wild inconsistencies. He regularly lied about the circumstances surrounding Poe's death and funeral. Certainly the hospitalization would be likewise fodder. Virtually everything from Moran's accounts must be met with scrutiny. Of course, the most prevailing mystery surrounding Poe's death is cause. Even if the cooping theory sounds good, that doesn't really explain what killed him. Medical records, autopsies, and testing have been equally inconclusive. But this is not for lack of suspects. In examining the death of Edgar Allan Poe, we are met with a litany of potential causes. Poe displayed a number of irregularities in the months leading to his death. Hallucinations, tremors, fever, and stupor, to name a few. Depending on whose account one wishes to believe, Poe may have displayed these for years prior to his death. These are also symptoms of dozens, maybe hundreds of potentially life-threatening conditions. So, what killed Edgar Allan Poe? Poe was highly sensitive to alcohol. According to his peers, a single drink would send Edgar Poe into a raucous drunkenness. The author likely went through long bouts of both alcoholism and total sobriety during his life. So it is tempting to say that, in one fashion or another, Edgar Allan Poe just drank himself to death. Delirium tremens is again a condition brought on by sudden alcohol withdrawal. When Poe left Richmond, he was not drinking at all, as far as history can tell. He did not seem particularly inclined to drink either. If Poe had suddenly started drinking the moment he left Richmond and then stopped just as suddenly in Baltimore, perhaps he could have been suffering from DT by the time he was found on the street. But there are a few small problems and one major problem with this idea. For one, it lacks motive. Why would he have suddenly gone into life-threatening alcoholism only to then immediately stop? Perhaps this is answerable by Poe's on and off near-manic relationship with alcohol. But the timeline does not make sense when we consider that DT takes a few days to set in. There just wasn't really enough time for Poe to go through this entire arc. This also does not explain his strange clothing or how he came to be laid down on a makeshift table. And again, Moran seemed insistent that alcohol was not a contributing factor. Snodgrass did think he was drunk when they found him, or that alcohol had somehow contributed, but Snodgrass's testimony is questionable at best. Furthermore, no one saw Poe drinking in the days that led up to the incident. Edgar Allan Poe was a riotous, conspicuous drinker. It seems unlikely that he would have disappeared from the public eye to drink himself to death, then abstain, remain anonymous long enough for DT to set in, and then re-emerge on the makeshift table where he was found. But above all of this, there is one major flaw in the alcohol theory. When people drink alcohol, tests reveal elevated levels of lead in the blood. Researchers exhumed Poe's body and tested him for lead. They found that in the weeks preceding his death, Poe's lead levels had dropped about 33%. Poe was certainly not drinking when he died. We should also consider some format of suicide. Poe often hinted at suicide in his writings, and there is even a somewhat dubious account of an 1848 suicide attempt. But in 2020, researchers analyzed Poe's lifelong collection of personal letters and autobiographical writings. They found that he was probably not suffering from depression and certainly not suicidal. To be precise, they concluded that, quote, significant consistent patterns of depression were not found and do not support suicide as a cause of death. If we ignored this for some reason, we could then also ask what sort of suicide would even result in Poe's situation. Perhaps some kind of poorly executed self-poisoning. But there is nothing in contemporary or period medical records that indicate fatal levels of any poison in Poe's body. We could too ignore this and say he ingested some poison in a suicide attempt and things did not transpire exactly how he planned. Maybe he just didn't take enough. But even with this hypothetical possibility, we are forced to reject actual evidence and testimony. We are further required to spin tales about his final days, which are based on little besides conjecture. The most popular and most likely causes of Poe's death have always been various diseases. Rabies is a fatal disease in humans, and it causes many of the symptoms displayed by Poe in the hospital. Such an infection has been proposed as Poe's cause of death. But Poe's body had no animal bites. Furthermore, rabid humans are unable to drink water. During Poe's time in the hospital, he drank both water and soup broth. So, Poe did not have rabies. Indoor lighting at the time produced significant levels of carbon monoxide. This type of monoxide poisoning would have produced symptoms like delirium and stupor before killing a victim. There is also a photograph of Poe from 1849 which shows the author having hallmark symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, a drooping eye and mouth. But forensic tests on Poe's body displayed only non-toxic amounts of carbon monoxide. In the decade following his death, Poe's body was exhumed and reburied a number of times. In one instance, a gravedigger named George Spence claimed to hear something hard rattling around in Poe's skull. After death, the brain quickly degrades into a liquid. But a brain tumor, once someone has died, can calcify into a hard mass. That could have been what Spence heard rattling around in Poe's skull. It has also been suggested that a brain lesion was the cause for Poe's high sensitivity towards alcohol. All of this theoretically could add up to Poe having a brain tumor which affected his mind before eventually killing him. But George Spence, the gravedigger, was not a doctor. He was not qualified to diagnose a post-mortem brain tumor. Poe's coffin was also extremely degraded. It's more likely that a piece of wood or a rock fell into Poe's partially decomposed skull. The brain tumor theory is possible, but it cannot be proven nor disproven in any significant way, and it has been largely rejected by leading Poe historians. Most of the theories go this way. They can be filed distinctly under the category of maybe. However, there is one disease, one affliction, which seems to tick a lot of the necessary boxes. Tuberculosis is an airborne infection which spreads when someone coughs, sneezes, spits, or even talks. In the 19th century, it was very poorly understood and often fatal. Today, Poe scholars and even interested TB researchers mostly agree that Edgar Allan Poe did have tuberculosis. Poe's life is one rich with mystery, but this diagnosis is perhaps the closest to fact that we have. Poe's mother, father, foster mother, brother, and wife all died of tuberculosis.
Okay.
In fact, in the 19th century, 1 out of 7 people died from TB. Given Poe's family history and the time in which he lived, it is almost certain that Poe had tuberculosis. Further, it is most likely that he was infected in infancy by either his mother or father. And indeed, it is TB which stands out as the most likely culprit for the death of Edgar Allan Poe. The symptoms displayed by Poe during his final days match perfectly with a tuberculosis diagnosis, specifically a type of TB called TB meningitis. This is a chronic disease which can take weeks or months to reach its pinnacle. During this sort of incubation stage, it can cause an increasing series of confusion, fever, paranoia, disorientation, delusion, and outright hallucination. Our modern image of consumption is usually this. Someone contracts TB, starts coughing blood, and then they die days or weeks later. But this is not always the case. Dr. Stephen J. Peitzman of the Drexel University College of Medicine notes that, quote, "It's entirely possible to have tuberculosis for much of your life and not know it. Essentially, you're infected and your lungs become inflamed. But then the body heals itself and creates things called granulomas in the lungs around the infection. The TB is held at bay, but there are still living pieces of the infection inside of these granulomas. During this time, a person may not show any symptoms. The infection just kind of lays dormant. But eventually, due to bad health or high stress, the granulomas can break down and the TB becomes reactivated. This is called latent tuberculosis. Despite his contemporary public image, Edgar Allan Poe was physically very healthy for much of his life. In his youth, he was a gifted athlete who had great skill in boxing, long jumping, and swimming. In adulthood, he was a good soldier, known to march and perform very well. As a writer, he habitually took miles-long walks in the forests of New England. Poe was not the pinnacle of health, but he was a healthy enough individual. Certainly healthy enough to keep his immune system strong, preventing his latent TB from reappearing for much of his life. In the years and months leading to Poe's death, he was very productive. We may be tempted to say that a man dying of TB would not have this capacity, but this is incorrect. There exists a long record of TB patients who were professionally, intellectually, and creatively brilliant, leading right up until their deaths. These people were optimistic, light, and productive before being suddenly undone by tuberculosis. Today, many researchers believe that Poe's arrival in Baltimore occurred just at the height of his TB onset. Whatever happened during the missing week on his travels pushed Poe's condition over its edge and resulted in his death. As Poe reached his middle ages, something significant would have needed to occur in order for his TB to reawaken. Here we have a great number of suspects. Perhaps Poe's sensitivity to alcohol was simply an allergy. The man was basically allergic to booze. We don't really know how much Poe drank throughout his life, but we can say that it was probably enough at its heights to weaken his immune system and break down those granulomas. If he began drinking again after leaving Richmond, that could have been all it took to bring his TB back to life. There's also the simple matter of stress. As a sensitive and lifelong creative, Poe led a stressful life. He saw many people die, and he suffered a number of professional and personal tragedies. Years of compounding stress very well could have reignited his tuberculosis. Like we discussed earlier, there was not enough carbon monoxide in Poe's body to trigger poisoning, but there was some. This type of toxin could have weakened his immune system significantly. Poe also did not have cholera, but he was treated for cholera with mercury, which is poisonous to humans. Ironically, this treatment could have ignited his latent tuberculosis and led to his death. If we reconsider the Cooping theory that seemed to line up so well, we have an even more plausible narrative. Cooping would not have killed him, but in conjunction with something else, maybe. TB could have easily been that something. The trauma, physical and mental, of a rough cooping would have been plenty to bring on his latent tuberculosis. We should also keep in mind that it didn't need to be any one of these factors. It could have been a few of them combined. A little stress, a bit of poisoning, and then a night of cooping could have all combined to trigger his TB. Tuberculosis meningitis would have left a series of granular indents on Poe's skull. If Poe's body were exhumed once again for tests, researchers could likely find these indents and confirm the diagnosis. But at this point, there are no plans for such a process, and there unlikely will be. During his life, Edgar Allan Poe had a very casual relationship with the truth. He embellished tales of his days, often lied about his childhood, in an effort to make his time on Earth all the more dramatic and romantic. Poe's death will forever remain a mystery. Perhaps he would want it no other way. With all of that said, the story of Poe's death and the meaning of Poe's death does not end with his final day on Earth. Poe's funeral could be summed up in perhaps one word: procedural. One carriage took him to a small, nearly anonymous cemetery. Poe had no tombstone. He was buried with a meager audience of about 9, 3 of whom were grave diggers.
Wow.
The entire affair lasted about 3 minutes, with one attendee describing it as, quote, cold-blooded and unchristian-like. Dr. Snodgrass was in attendance, and he wrote this of the funeral. The plainly coffined body was speedily lowered, and then the earth was shoveled directly upon the coffin lid. This was so unusual even in the burials of the poor that I could not help noticing the absence of not only the customary box as an enclosure for the coffin itself, but of even the commonest boards to prevent the direct contact of the decomposing wet earth with it.
Wow.
I shall never forget the emotion of disappointment mingled with disgust and something akin to resentment that thrilled through my whole being as I heard the clods and stones resound from the coffin lid and break the more ordinarily solemn stillness of the scene as it impressed me. It seemed as if heartlessness, too often found directing the funeral rites of the poor and forsaken ones of the earth, had suddenly become personified into a malign goddess, and that she had ordered those awfully discordant sounds as best befitting her own unearthly mood. Poe had earned very little money throughout his life, but a few years prior to his death, Poe published The Raven, which gained him widespread reputation and even fame. That being said, this fame was not always the kindest sort. During Poe's life, poetry was expected to be written with a certain timbre. Christian ideals dictated that poetry should be convivial, amusing, and uplifting. The written word was meant to communicate wholesome moral lessons.
So it's like
Poe rejected all of this. Edgar Allan Poe wrote about lonely, isolated people fighting unwinnable battles against forces they rarely even understood. His protagonists were under constant threat and almost never came out unscathed. And so his works were largely rejected by his contemporary sensibility. This can be seen clearly in the New York Tribune's obituary for Edgar Allan Poe, written by a man named Rufus Wilmot Griswold. Griswold touched on Poe's talent for writing. How could he not? But it was not Poe's talent which was in question at the time. Instead, Griswold assaulted his character, calling Poe arrogant and cynical. He described Poe as a madman who walked the streets having hallucinatory conversations with phantasms. He alluded that Poe was a drunk and a drug addict. The obituary read as one for a degenerate, not for a literary titan. Griswold had old-fashioned opinions, in line with those of his oldest contemporaries. He worried that Poe's immoral writings would lead readers down a path of degeneracy. Griswold's wholehearted goal was to cast Poe's work off into death alongside the author himself. But entirely by accident, Griswold did just the opposite. For one thing, his obituary was met with a chorus of refute. Poe's strongest supporters immediately published writings attesting to the author's character, talent, and deserved place in literary canon. The conflicting reports led to an upheaval of interest in Poe's works. Audiences flocked to Poe's writings and his life itself, keen to uncover for themselves the truth about the author. This did not only happen in immediacy. Generations that followed up to today found unending fascination in everything Poe, spearheaded by Griswold's libelous obituary. So who was Edgar Allan Poe? He was a man in fight against demons and disease over which he had only the smallest bit of control, and for which society at large had very little interest. Often he won these fights, going years with work in progress and sobriety. He had friends who he loved and who loved him. Poe was a remarkably intelligent, perceptive, and sensitive genius of a man. He achieved dreary literary heights which still have not been surpassed. He was, like all people large or small, complicated.
Oh, shit.
I think Poe, above most other things, was simply early. His fascinations were not the fascinations of his time. Isolation, pain, and death were to be shoved under the rug in Poe's era.
Which is crazy,
as the 19th century shifted to the 20th, these horrors came into the spotlight of reality. The Civil War and 2 world wars wreaked havoc on America and the entire world. The cultural tone shifted in a way that became much closer to the sounds and sights of Edgar Allan Poe. Today, this shift has come more squarely than ever. We are burdened with anxieties and deep spiritual pain. Poe identified these as an inexorable part of the human condition, no matter how much the world wished to proclaim otherwise. Poe wanted to write for the regular person. He wanted his stories to be felt by the populace, not only by the elite. Edgar Allan Poe did not live to see this become reality, but it has indeed. The world has moved and the winds have changed. So today we have what could only be described as appropriate for the author and his works. In death, Edgar Allan Poe is more alive than ever.
That's a good essay. Nah, that takes a lot of work to get. Okay, how's my energy? Should I eat something? Let's eat those blueberries.
Before we get started, if you're interested in the medieval era, you'd probably like the Horse's store. There's a sword and some shirts that all take inspiration from medieval design. Check it out at horses.land, and I hope you enjoy this video. Merlin is most famous as the mysterious sorcerer and advisor to King Arthur. Yet in the folklore and historical documents that bear his name, Merlin takes a number of titles. Poet, magician, prophet, shaman, even antichrist. So, was Merlin real? Yes and no. Right now this answer is frustrating. But as we examine Arthurian legends and the historical context that created them, it will become substantive, meaningful, and indeed true. Immediately, we should acknowledge that Merlin has existed for centuries, and so he appears in thousands of written works. We cannot possibly offer an entirely comprehensive view of these works. Such an effort and the resulting essay would be effectively infinite. Instead, we will examine the works that most significantly developed the figure of Merlin. The first mention of a Merlin comes from a 9th century Celtic epic called the Gododin. In this story, a horde of warriors do battle against the Saxons. In the battle, the Saxons are victorious, and virtually all of the opposing warriors are killed. Within the story, there is mention of one soldier called Myrddin, which is the Old Welsh form of Merlin. There is also a vague reference to King Arthur. One warrior is praised, but with the specification that he is, quote, not Arthur. With only a little stretch of the imagination, we can see how this could reference the legendary King Arthur. Merlin's entire lore is intertwined with that of Arthur, so this connection is certainly significant. From the same time period, we do find mention of a Merlin in another Welsh poem. Interestingly, this one is called Prophecy of Britain, and regularly features the phrase Merlin foretells as an opening line to its stanzas. Again, this is hardly a concrete link, but the Prophecy of Britain does check two boxes, the name Merlin as well as the idea of prophecy. So far, our connections are vague and perhaps circumstantial at best. But then we can look to a collection of poems called the Welsh Triads. These poems have been traced definitively to the 6th century. In the Triads, we have this passage. 3 skillful bards of Arthur's court, Myrddin, son of Morfrin, Myrddin Emrys, and Taliesin. Here we have the first time Merlin is mentioned definitively in connection with Arthur. Perhaps more remarkably, we have 2 Merlins, Myrddin, son of Morfrin, and Myrddin Emrys. Each of these have likely connections to our now famous Merlin. Elsewhere in Celtic literature, there is a character named Morfrin. He is the son of a woman named Ceridwen. Depending on the source, Ceridwen is described as a sorceress, a wise woman, or a goddess. Ceridwen brews for Morfrin a magical potion that will give him all of the wisdom in the world. Ultimately, Morfrin does not take the potion, but if Myrddin is the son of Morfrin, we then have the first link between Merlin and magic. Likewise, the name Myrddin Emrys has its own magical implications. Nennius was a Welsh monk in the 9th century. This monk wrote about a young man named Emrys with prophetic abilities. Most notably, Nennius' story of Emrys would later be almost verbatim repurposed in Arthurian legend, with Merlin filling the role of the prophet Emrys. Many of these early writings are a swirl of fact and fiction. They document embellished versions of real events or fictionalized accounts of real people. But we can find distinctly non-fictional references to Merlin as well. The Black Book of Carmarthen is a collection of Welsh poetry dated at the 13th century. However, there are fragments within that book that are considerably older, from about the 6th century. It is likely that over several hundred years, these poems were copied and updated by Welsh monks. This was probably in the interest of depaganizing the material. As the Black Book was translated and retranslated, there arose a game of telephone. Originally, it was written in language that, even in the late medieval period, was so archaic it bordered on unreadable. Over the centuries of copying and recopying, scribes made egregious errors in spelling, grammar, and verbiage. As a result, for a long time, large parts of the book were incoherent and basically nonsensical. Thanks to more modern methods of interpretation, the Black Book has now become quite useful. In the Black Book, we have several poems written by someone named Myrddin. Well, maybe. Author Nikolai Tolstoy notes in The Quest for Merlin that these poems could not have been written by a 6th century bard. He argues that the structure, language, and penmanship indicate that they must have been written much later. More significantly, Nikolai notes, many of these poems are basically prophecies. They tell of events that occurred in the 12th century or later. So unless this 6th century Myrddin was an actual, legitimate prophet, he could not have written these poems. Despite this, the Black Book is still relevant and useful. You see, beyond the prophetic, much of this work is autobiographic. In one section, we learn a lot about Myrddin. Basically, the narrative goes that Myrddin fought in the Battle of Arderid, which his side lost, and which drove Myrddin to insanity. The victor of this battle, Rhydderch, is now hunting Myrddin, who is hiding in an apple tree. More to the point, Myrddin now lives as a madman in the Caledonian forest. In this passage, Myrddin mentions Rhydderch and Gwendolau. We know both of these people to be actual historical figures. The Battle of Arderid was likewise a real event. So again, we have Myrddin positioned, or positioning himself, alongside real historical fact. Furthermore, the figure of Myrddin came from somewhere. Later authors credited him with the aforementioned prophecies for some reason. It's likely that in the 6th century, there was a person or a prophet named Myrddin, even if he didn't pen these particular works. Whether Myrddin was real or not, though, we can say for certain that he provided the genesis for our contemporary Merlin. In 1136, Geoffrey of Monmouth published the book History of the Kings of England. The book is ostensibly a history of England from its first settlers, centuries and centuries before Geoffrey put together the writing itself. In its introduction, Geoffrey claims that he is not the book's true author, but that it is a translation of, quote, an ancient book in the British tongue. No such book has ever been found, and historians today largely agree that Geoffrey probably just made that up. It seems his book was assembled primarily from Welsh and Celtic folklore, including the poems of Myrddin. However, it's worth noting that Geoffrey did a lot of his own authoring too, and his familiarity with the source material was casual at best. This will become quite apparent later, but for now, we can rest the point. Geoffrey's book was immediately immensely popular. At the time, the book was basically unprecedented. No one knew anything about the history of Britain prior to the birth of Christ. There were stories in the oral tradition, but Geoffrey's work was the first comprehensive written history of Britain. As John Matthews notes in the Book of Merlin, the only vaguely similar work was the Bible, similar only in that it offered action, drama, and excitement through the written word. But History of Kings was specifically about Britain. Its stories were set in places that people knew and had visited. Furthermore, it cemented, dubiously or not, the country's history. It told tales of knights and chivalry, which provided an idyllic version of the country. A glorious sort of past, and perhaps one that could be regained in the future. The book also propped Britain up as a great nation with a long storied past, rivaled only by that of the Romans. For the ruling class, Geoffrey's book functioned as perfect propaganda. They were rightful heirs to a line of kings steeped in the annals of a truly great civilization. The book was also immensely entertaining for its inclusion of the King Arthur. In fact, most of the book is dedicated to Arthurian tales. And it is indeed in these tales where we find Merlin, or at least the first instance of Merlin as we know him today. Geoffrey's Merlin stories align remarkably well to the Myrddin poems. Historians unanimously agree that Myrddin did in fact provide the basis for Geoffrey's Merlin. The History of Kings gives only a small role to Merlin. Throughout the book, it discusses the history of British kings, before stopping pretty abruptly for a section dedicated to Merlin. In this, there is a tyrant named Vortigern who is attempting to build a great tower. Each night, though, the tower collapses. Vortigern's magical advisors tell him to find a fatherless child and spill his blood on the foundation of the tower. In History of Kings, Merlin is the offspring of a human woman and a demon. So Merlin the child is brought to Vortigern. Merlin tells Vortigern that there are 2 dragons beneath the foundation of the tower who fight every evening. Their fights shake the ground and cause the tower to collapse. Merlin is proven to be right, and shortly thereafter the character makes grand prophecies about the future of the Saxon and the British races. He predicts the rise of King Arthur, calling him the boar of Cornwall, Merlin declares that the boar will trample Vortigern and his men beneath its feet. Merlin goes on to describe the apocalypse itself as a fall of deadly rain in a sort of trance-like state. Shortly thereafter, Merlin exits the story quite unceremoniously. So, Merlin's role in the history is significant but not huge. After all, nowhere in those pages do we find the Sword in the Stone, Excalibur, or the Round Table. To reach those, we must look further into future Merlin literature. Despite a few critiques from his contemporaries, Geoffrey's immensely popular history was taken as true, including